Meeting will come to order. You just did make it, I'll tell you.
You got your cookies or your muffin?
Oh, no cookies. Probably got them in the bag there.
Okay, one of our first items of business here will be taking a moment of silence to honor Phyllis Taylor. There is a write-up in your packet towards the back about her. When I first came with the Lakes Region Planning Commission, Phyllis was already in a wheelchair, and she attended very faithfully. She was, if I recall, the secretary for the organization, and it was really devastating to her when she was not able to get a ride down from Danbury anymore. She had somebody that was bringing her down, but his work changed and he was no longer able to do it, and she was very devastated not to be able to do it, because this became a part of her keeping her going at the last of it. She was very much involved. So if we could, we'll take a moment of silence, please. Okay, the actual definition of a moment is 90 seconds. I don't think I quite made that.
When I first knew her, I used to call her Phyllis Danbury.
Yeah.
And I'm not absolutely sure. I never was sure of the spelling of her first name, but that's all. Sometimes it's hard with one L, and sometimes it's hard with two.
Yeah, I think she spelled it with two.
Okay.
Y-L-L-I-S, yeah.
All right, move on then to some of our regular business, consideration of the draft minutes of April 9. We have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion, any observations, any changes, corrections? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor of approving the draft minutes of April 9 of 2014 as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. All right, consideration of the draft treasury report for April 30, and of course the motion will be subject to audit, and if we could get that moved, then I believe Jeff has a couple of words to say. Get a motion on that, please?
I make a motion subject to audit.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, you had some...
Well, I just wanted to point out that we did have at the commission meeting, we did pass the revised budget with the draw from the fund transfer. None too soon. As you can see, we're running cash flow running 36,000 behind. I believe, if you take the fund transfer and some of the projects that were a little bit behind on billing, including Silverton, if you look at UPWP, we had projected that we were going to spend $175,000 on that contract. We spent $119 to date, and that ends on July 1. So we're a little bit behind on billing that project, and I believe that's those are the reasons why we're running a little bit behind on cash flow.
Any questions, comments, observations? Hearing none, then I will call the question. All in favor of the treasurer's report for April 30 as written, subject to audit, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. So declared. Thank you. All right. Preliminary fiscal year 15 budget discussion. Somebody by the name of Jay.
Jump right into that.
Jump right in.
So, sort of, just really, I don't have any budget to pass out. I really just wanted to have a conceptual discussion about some of the factors, and this isn't an all-inclusive list of things that are going to affect our budget, but I wanted to get into it a little bit. The HESM contracts Those are the Homeland Security, FEMA, hazardous mitigation contracts in particular. There's been some discussion about that at I think at the commission meeting. Stan told me to put that on the agenda today to discuss it a little bit. As we've discussed in the past, that contract is running substantially over budget. It's a $50,000 contract. We spent $65,000 on it to date. And the projection that I got from the staff person working on it would, or it was about halfway done, so we were projecting a $100,000 total project cost on that. We have spent quite a bit of time on that contract in the last several weeks and sort of sharpened our pencil on that. And I do have a schedule, where is it, we got some concessions from FEMA. I think we should continue. I think we should continue and finish out the contract. I guess is my overall recommendation. And I'm feeling that we're going to come in less than the $100,000 for total project cost. Probably $10,000 to $20,000 less than that. So probably around $80,000 or $90,000 total project cost. We have a schedule to complete all of the plans by the end of August. Well, let me say, there's two contracts, one with 10 towns and another one with 3. I'm talking about the 10-town one right now. That's should be all completed by the end of August. The end of that contract date is the end of September. So none too soon on that, but yet completed. Basically, in one of the concessions. So I'm feeling good about that, and I'm feeling good that FEMA, one of the concessions they've made is that one of the things that's really created havoc for us is when they review the plans, they might find something that we need to, a deficiency that we need to correct, and then they'll send it back to us. And then we'll correct the deficiency, send it back in, and then they were completely re-reviewing the entire plan, and then they would identify other things, inevitably identify other things that needed to be fixed. So it was just rolling thing where we could never get ahead, and we could never get it approved because the regs and points of emphasis were changing. They've agreed now that when we put the plan in for review, they can identify deficiencies or whatever, send it back to us, we fix the deficiencies. When it goes back to them, they just look at the edits that we made, the sections of the plan that they asked us to fix. They don't re-review the entire plan. They just look at the piece that they asked us, where they found a deficiency the first time. They don't. They just want that corrected, and they're not going to find other things in the plan that they didn't identify the first time to make us fix. So that will do wonders. We've also been in much closer contact with the Homeland Security Office. They've given us updated resources and bibliographies and other things like that. So we feel like we have the guidance documentation. We feel like we're talking to them almost daily or weekly. Met with them several times. They're coming to our hazmat meetings now, to provide information and to understand what some of the challenges are on our end. So I'm feeling a lot better about it, and I think we have a really reasonable plan to get them completed by the end of August. But it will be another 15,000 or so that we'll have to cover with overhead or dues or dues. So that's the one issue. I don't know if we want to pause and talk about that a little bit before we move on to some of the other.
What about going forward?
Oh, so going forward, so there's a second contract with 3 towns for hazardous mitigation. We're on target on that, and I'm hoping we should be able to complete that on time, on budget. We have another year to complete that one, so we have more time on that one.
Was the budget higher, or?
It was still $5,000. It's $15,000 for 3 towns. When we get a new one, it'll be $6,000. They did increase the budget by $1,000 to $6,000 per town. I'm told This next year, there will only be one, FEMA will only be funding one hazardous mitigation plan in the region, and that's gonna be Bristol. So we can decide whether or not we want to operate that project or not. It would be a $6,000 budget to do it. I'm thinking right now we do.
You think you can provide the deliverables for the 6,000?
I think we need to go into it with our eyes wide open and make sure that there's no extraordinary things that would create problems. But yes, I'm feeling that we have more of a system now. We have a better understanding of how we can get these things approved, and we have a more stable situation to get them approved. So I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to close that one out on budget on time.
National flood insurance just hit yesterday. I just got a whole list, not that I'm on that need to know per se, but I get a lot of that information in. And now the certificates really are going to be refocused on and updated, and they're trying to move them faster through. But if you don't have one, you better go back and redo it, because it affects the township that has to be insured under it because of all this flooding, quote, and tornadoes and everything else that's going on. Now they're really, and they keep changing it.
Yeah, they did.
Every
The bigger
time I
waters bill
I
was
get
changed.
that.
They've kind of watered it down. They were going to try to make properties in floodplains pay
Right.
full rates, but there was so much complaining about that, they rolled it back.
Because I was
It's
gonna
part of
tell
what's
you,
been going on.
they're changing this to the point where it's, I say that they're retaxing it to the point where some of these that were underpaying are gonna see a huge increase in their premiums. And it's like, we tried to do this in New York because of the base flood elevation situation was raised by 3 feet. And New Jersey had to do theirs by 3.5 to 4 feet, I think it was. And which then really increased a lot of insurance policies, because they haven't gone back and redone these for so long. And now this thing about mitigation has this mitigation filings, the same thing there. And they keep doing this. And believe me, I'm trying to keep up with a friend of mine in Arkansas who's going through the same thing. And it's just like, God, this is,
It's tough.
you're literally chasing it to get the answers, and they're not coming back with the answers, at least from my.
And the accuracy of the maps is also an issue. We just had
That's right.
We just had a RPC director meeting with the coordinator of the flood insurance program for the state. She doesn't live in a floodplain, but she has flood insurance. And, you know, the question is, well, why? And it's, well,
Exactly.
areas out of the floodplain, you know, these floodplain maps aren't completely accurate. There's other things that happens to flood areas that aren't, you know, with all the undersizing of culverts and other things, and they talk about maybe 40% of our culverts statewide are undersized.
That's right.
That there's flooding danger out there, so. And she doesn't want to be caught without insurance being the coordinator, the
There's
state
another,
coordinator.
I forget where I read it now, it may have been Time, but you probably know about this, but something on the order, not to digress, but it's just kind of interesting, that something on the order of 35% of recipients of reimbursement for flood damage are twice and 3 over times. I mean, they've been flooded 3 times, such that the total amount of money they've received for compensation exceeds the value of the property by 2 or 3 times. And they're questioning, what the hell are we doing? We're paying people to live in flood zones. And
That's what we did there in Missouri. I was back there the second time around on the 3rd attempt, which they don't get. You are allowed twice, and then on the 3rd time, they evaluate the mapping. And now the Army Corps, come on Army, you were supposed to give us the updates. Well, they're chasing these readings all over on rivers, and they're not putting it in black and white like they used to, but the GIS is coming back with better. Netherlands, it went and redid their entire country, much more superior and color-coded, and it's really quite something to see. But we, for some reason, are not getting that communication from the Army Corps right now.
And there is a repetitive loss, to Bob's point, there's a repetitive loss.
Right.
They're doing going through a procedure right now of trying to catalog all of the repetitive loss properties around them.
Exactly.
So it is a little bit of a digression, but it is sort of important to discuss because these things are so important to our communities in terms of resilience and other things. So that's why sort of really want to stay involved with this agency and with this work because it's so closely tied to a lot of what we do and it's so important to our communities. And to have a community out there that hasn't updated its hazmat plan, you know, and us not being there to help them with it, I think is something that I think we want to avoid. So that's hazardous. Hazardous, you know, a bit of a drain to our next year's budget, but or an investment, maybe put it that way, into the future. Regional plan. Good news on that is we do have a pretty good budget left on that, and we have until December on that. So there's an awful lot of work left to do on that. And it ends in December, and that's both, and that's been supporting over position for 3 years. So that's going to be a big change in our budget. We can maybe talk. We can talk about what the maybe under committee reports. We have a draft about how we can distribute the plan and get comments on that. Maybe we can discuss down there. The broadband plan, regional broadband plan. That's another project that's been going on over 3 years. We have until December to complete it. We do have a pretty good budget left on that, and we have some time left on that, but we have, again, a substantial amount of work on that. The latest on that is the planner that, or the GIS technician really, who has been meeting with the committee for the last 2 years, just does not see herself as a planner, does not want to write the plan. So I need to figure out, I'm gonna basically be holding on to that until, I don't know, right now I'm looking at Jerry Coogan after gets done with the GISF work on June 30th, and I might try to program him into working on the broadband between June and December to get that completed, because we do need some additional staffing to work on that, and that's probably the best way to go. But that one is, you know, that's been on our coffers for 3 years. That's going to be going away. NATO is, it's in your packet here. The impact of President's budget on regional organizations. I did that because it costs about, I don't know exactly what it is, $3,000 or $4,000 a year to be members of this organization. So it's a substantial investment. But it is very helpful on getting information about the federal budget and other opportunities for regional organizations. It gives you a lot of information on what programs are being funded, how they're being funded, where the opportunities are. And they provide a lot of other professional and technical assistance to assist regional commissions. They're basically, all the EDA districts in the country, you know, there's about 300 of them or so, most all of them are members of this organization, or there's another organization called the NARC, National Association of Regional Councils, that's quite similar. So I just wanted to kind of throw out the idea that in terms, you know, replacing revenue going forward is going to be an important focus of the organization, and this is a very valuable tool for assisting with that effort. It's not an inexpensive tool or membership, though.
Can you share membership in any way? Just for the Northman?
I think we could get, like, we can't really share membership. I think there's different levels of membership, so we might be able to get like an associate membership for, you know, a couple thousand, 2,500 or something like that.
Where they haven't approved us yet.
Well, we can still join. We don't have to be an EDA district to be and they've kind of moved a lot away from EDA. They used to focus a lot more on EDA because EDA has some problems, and the future of EDA is very much in question. So they spend a lot more time on transportation. Their main focus is transportation now.
I'm just thinking that, with the other 9 regional planning commissions and the different other organizations, whether Belknap County Economic, whether you can partner up with any of these. So every organization doesn't have to maintain its separate membership, but there may be a way that you can get the information sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I like this, I got from, a member that got it and passed it on. So I don't think there's a way of sharing memberships. There's a way of sharing information once you're a member. You could share them information out.
Those are my only thoughts. It's
I
your
haven't
judgment whether it's valuable or not.
I mean, I think it really helps us to have intelligence and information that our partners, to be a valuable partner, to bring to the table, to provide important information about opportunities and things like that. It definitely does that.
Would this help our 30 members at all?
I think it'll help it, and that it will help us identify opportunities and funding and changes and programs and kind of just be at the head of the curve on that.
That's important.
So I think as far as our leadership on helping communities navigate through these things, it's a very good tool to have. But I don't underestimate, it is a fairly expensive tool to have, so I raise it as a question with the.
It all comes down to wants versus needs.
It does. So as we look at the budget, as I give you some numbers and we go down through the numbers, we can see how it rates out.
So there are rules on what constitutes an organization? If we're a member, can we pass these out to each 30 towns, or does that violate some membership rule?
I don't think there's any real, I think we have broad discretion on how we distribute the information in terms of going on the website and having access to information. I think that's something where we have a password and basically we probably shouldn't put that out there so people have online access to all the resources.
So it's more than just flyers, it's an online service.
It's absolutely an online service, and they do. They've been really helpful in creating dialogues with federal agencies, putting together meetings with federal agency heads, doing statewide evaluations, doing research reports. I have been pretty far down the road in talking to the sister organization, NARC, about partnering on a regional energy plan when I was at North Country. So, they can help. They had a former Assistant Secretary of Energy on there working with them on helping to pull together regional energy plans. So they just provide a lot of resources and connections and intelligence that is exactly tailored to organizations like us. It's regional development organizations, MPOs, and regional planning commissions all over the country. All similar.
Getting to a question that I had about it. If you become a member, is that then going to give you some inside help on perhaps getting some of these grants or getting some of this money that you would not get if you were not a member?
Short answer is yes.
All right.
Yes.
Then, then we can start looking at the economic balance here of paying the membership and what we may get out of it in assistance, as opposed to not being there and not having the assistance. I think that's important. I think that gets at what Warren was asking, and what you were kind of nibbling around the edge of there.
Yeah, I definitely clearly believe that it'll be an investment that'll pay more than pay itself back.
So we don't need to vote on
No,
that now?
we don't need to vote on
This
it.
is just kind of getting preliminary information. Okay.
Yes, it's just some of the questions that we're going to need to deal with, and we'll have probably numbers next month to look at. And then, more to the point about, we do need to spend more time on replacing revenue and new funding opportunities in the region. One of the ones that is looming large right now is this whole MTBE program that DES is starting. They've started up a brand new MTBE remediation bureau that is going to run for at least 2 years and probably 6 years. They have $80 million right now in lawsuit revenue that they're developing a plan to grant guideline document right now to figure out how to grant those funds out around the state. The guy who's run the Brownfields program for a number of years that I've worked with over a number of years is running the program, and he's going to be coming up here, I think, on April the 22nd for a meeting, and I've invited town administrators and town planners to come to the meeting, 22nd at 9:30, here, right here in this room, to discuss it. There's a broad range of activities that are going to be allowed under this thing, everything from cleanup of existing MTBE sites to prevention programs. They're looking at some innovative major capital expenses potentially. If there's, mentioned more than once that if there's an area of wells that are contaminated with MTBE, and there's 2 water systems on either side, and you could connect those water systems and address the contamination issue in the wells, that would be something that they would be interested in looking at. So I think, I think there's a lot of room for creativity and really getting some good stuff done. It does definitely have to be tied to MTBE. And do something specifically on that, but it can benefit other things too, as long as it's taking care of the MTBE.
Stormwater systems.
I think that's, where you have gas stations that are, might have petrol on the ground and that washes right into a water body. Yeah, I mean, I think things like that could be addressed.
Because all of our stormwater systems are aging and old and inadequate.
I think, if I remember right, the focus of this program is drinking water. Right. So if the surface water body that's being impacted by stormwater is a drinking water source,
yes,
like Waukon, then possibly the focus is drinking.
I think you're right.
Has to be.
But in Laconia, everything ends up in Poggers Bay. The stormwater systems and things like that. They're so antiquated.
Is that where you get your drinking water?
Yeah.
On that point, I went to that groundwater conference. I went to an interesting presentation about on drinking water. They're talking about the Merrimack. And there's going to be a lot of focus. There's a lot of water that's pulled out of the Merrimack for drinking. And there was Chris Wells from the Forest Society was there, and he was throwing out some statistics that 55% of New Hampshire's population gets its drinking water from the Merrimack watershed, at least.
And we're the prime source for that.
Right.
It comes down.
So when we're talking about drinking water, the Winnie River and the Pemmy are become real factors. And he talked about statewide, about 30% of the land, I think these numbers are right, 30% of the land is conserved. Around water sources, in the Merrimack watershed, it's only about 15% of land is protected around that area. So there's and there was a Forest Service report that was just released that drew a lot of attention to threatened water sources along in the Merrimack. And I guess, in Massachusetts, there was a person from Massachusetts there, Lawrence and some of those industrial cities down there pull their drinking water right out of the river directly. And Manchester and some others, Concord, are considering doing similar things. So there's off Bob's point there, I think there's going to be a lot of focus in that area. There's a lot of people that issue is rising up.
Do we know if we have any existing MTBE contamination sites in our region?
It's a really good question. There's a database of 800 sites, and and I'm trying to get a hold of it, but they're telling, he hasn't shared it with me yet. Gary Lynn at the state. He said it's kind of hard to decipher. You sort of need a GIS person to map it to see the data or something. So I'm pursuing that question.
What does MTBE stand for?
Oh, what is it?
Methyl tributyl
I'll defer to the.
ethylene?
What is it, John?
Ethyl tributyl ethylene.
Right.
It's an additive to reformulate gas. That the federal government required that they reformulate gas, but I don't think they necessarily required they use MTBE, and it turns out the MTBE moves huge distances and does contaminate, has contaminated a number of. They found it in something like 40% of the wells, but not exceeding health standards. But statewide, 40% of the wells, only like 2 or 5% that exceed health standards. But a lot of wells have it in it.
It's one of those things that is good for the air that we breathe, but not so good for the water we drink.
I guess, yeah. That's for
Speaking of MTBE, I'll mention it now since it's appropriate in drinking water. Our own John Cotton was recognized at the drinking water conference 2 weeks ago for 3 lifetimes of service.
He's been around that many?
Yeah. And
He's got 6 more to go.
So I see, he's like a cat.
Yeah, there's a new name, John.
Oh, congratulations,
That's
John.
great.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you.
Absolutely.
Did you get the gold watch?
I got a nice plaque.
Good. Very deserving.
So I don't know if there's any other issues about the budget that people want to discuss or bring up or whatever as we're putting together the preliminary draft of the budget. I don't know if there's anything that you want me to be thinking about. But here's some of the things I'm thinking about.
On the transportation side, because they're moving forward with the 10-year plan, and there'll be some funding there, and then with the gas tax funding, will that, even though it's going into repairs and maintenance, does that provide any opportunity for RPCs to participate in the planning?
Yeah, with our UPWP funds. Part of the question is, additional funds to like administrate projects and things like that, that LPA training and things like that. DOT has some indigestion about us playing that role. They see a conflict of interest between us working for them on UPWP or, a contract with them on planning and then administrating the project for the town. They see a conflict of interest there, and they see us and kind of getting into a no-win situation where we're squeezed between the town on one side, our membership, doing everything we can for them, and our largest contract on the other side with DOT. That there's some concerns about that, but I continue to question that area because it's done in the other areas, like community development block grants is a good example of where RPCs are commonly administrate grants for communities. So I think it's definitely something to look at. The 4-cent thing is just really preventing 700 layoffs, nothing else. Well, I guess it's supposed to be providing some money in local projects, but it's, the way I hear it from DOT, it's a lot of what it's doing is preventing major layoffs from occurring from their end.
I had a question on the regional plan. You mentioned our budget runs through December, but Sherry leaves the end of June.
Yes.
So how do we pick up the work to finish the project, from a staffing point of view?
Really good question. I'm hoping to have and trying to do a full court press here to have the plan pretty much complete by the end of June, have it by July, and I was gonna talk about this under the committee reports, by July 15th, have the plan distributed for, the initial draft of the plan distributed for review, and that would give us, we're required by, under RSA, to give a 30-day review period. That would give us a 60-day review period before the September commission meeting.
God, you woke everybody up.
So, so Kemen had really planned on staffing it himself after the 30th, basically, assuming the plan was done and it was a matter of getting it adopted and things like that. So I'm looking at playing that role, and we're talking now about maybe keeping Jerry on in some capacity after that. We do have a fair amount of funding left, so we can bring some other staffing in. There is going to be a real expense in holding to that. And after June 30th, he definitely is available. He's available to work on broadband. He's available to work on GSF, and we've also talked about doing some CDBG work. That he could also do some CDBG grant administration and grant writing in partnership or for Lrpc.
But in terms of responding to questions that come back from the communities and so forth,
Yeah, he would be available. It's a matter of how much we're willing to further contract with him to do the GSF work.
okay.
I'd be concerned personally, Jeff, if you're taking on too much of a role of actual doing. We really need to have you as our overseer, and I know what can happen when you get to be a working supervisor. Sometimes you get all tied up in the nitty-gritty and lose sight of the overall picture, and we just don't need to have that happen.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and I am managing the Brownfields project right now. It has like an $18,000 budget for us. I'm working on that now, so I appreciate that, and I'll take that into the budget review about staffing.
John?
The analogy is the fire chief never enters the building.
I appreciate that, I really do, and I'll address that when I bring the budget to you.
And we appreciate so much what you have done as far as laying out some of these sheets to bring to our attention what the different projects were. We feel as if maybe we had the perfect storm this year that got us in the situation that we were in, but we really need to have you stay on top of the stuff so we don't have a repeat performance of that.
Yeah, and I will say that Kemen has set things up very well, knowing that broadband and the regional plan effort were coming to an abrupt end in December of this year. He really formed the staff in contract, instead of having a permanent position with Jerry, it's a contracted position, temporary position. And then we have another part-time position that's been working on the broadband. So we are very well, he did set us up very well to contract if we needed to, depending with the contraction and funding. So we're in good shape from that point of view.
Anything else on the preliminary budget concept?
Just one thing, you mentioned finally on MTB again, there was a database of 800 sites, but it was difficult to manage through there, and it might require GIS capability.
Yeah.
So, like Dave could maybe
Absolutely.
wander through that stuff.
Yes,
It's
yes.
important to pick out.
I got
Go ahead.
Dave doing nothing but hazardous mitigation plans for the next 3 months, but yes, we have 3 GIS people
Yeah.
that can access that information.
Yeah, I think in anticipation of this substantial amount of funding being available, if we could get ahead of it and be ready, rather than start scrambling after the money.
Right.
Just let it out.
Yeah, and if we have places, and I assume it would be the towns that would receive the money. I don't know.
I'm not sure who would, I mean, I would hope that the regional commissions, you know, certainly, I would love to, for us to be able to run a program, is prevention programs, mapping programs, other things like that. I offered to, they're hiring, I think 6 people right away, or 4 people right away, but maybe up to 13 people. DES could be hiring new to work on this project. I offered some office space upstairs to one of their people. I agree, I'm trying to stay on top of it. And this meeting on the, I think next week is gonna be very much part of that.
One person DES has hired is Fred McGarry, who was a bureau chief, retired recently, a year or 2 ago, retired. He's coming back in part-time on the TPE. He's a really neat engineer.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for Gary Lynn. I've worked with him for a long time. He's been running the underground storage tank program for I don't know how many decades at DES, but he's definitely one of the old guard there and knows his stuff, has done an amazing job on brownfields and underground storage, and now on this MTBE. You know, he really had a lot to do with leading the charge on the lawsuit and stuff, and have a great relationship with him, and so I'm optimistic about what we can accomplish with it.
Okay. Moving right along. Chair calls on B. Perry for information about Comeau's.
Oh, that must be me.
Is that you?
That must be me.
B. Perry.
Well, Robert and I could not decide between 2 of them, which one is Daniel Paradis, or Paradis, however he pronounces his name.
Paris.
Parody, and Kenneth A. Knowlton. So we sent, or had Marie send, the executive board, information on both of these men to be voted on at this meeting. And then there was also another person, a Mr. Steve Wingate, and Bob can probably tell you more about him. He wasn't into water so much, but as he was the, I don't know how you'd put it, into having your water tested, and instead of having it sent to Concord, you could bring it to the town. So Bob can tell you more about that. You have the floor, sir.
Well, I think we both felt that compared to past years, we didn't have a superstar.
Right.
There's good people out there doing good things, but pretty much local, milfoil programs, drinking water programs, land trusts within a town, those kinds of good solid many years of activity, but nobody that stood out on a regional or state basis. So within that, Dan and Ken Knowlton kind of rose to the top within that kind of person, but we couldn't
Decide.
We couldn't, and we didn't think we should
No.
decide for the committee between these 2. So I hope you've read them, and maybe some of you know something about them that can contribute to the decision-making process.
Does our committee even feel that this is well, let me phrase it the other way. Does the committee feel that perhaps this is a year we should just skip the award because we don't have an outstanding enough individual?
Yeah. Well, what's enough? I mean, I think recognizing people for what they're doing has value. And even though they're not, maybe not a John Cotton, for example, but they're out doing good things, and I think there's value in recognizing these kinds of people. So I would opt to making a decision. And I should mention that this Steve Wingate, who sits on our strategic plan committee, by the way.
And if elected, he'll be on the executive board, starting in June too.
Okay, starting in June, okay.
July.
July. What he was, if not the, I'm not sure, we'd have to kind of check, but driving force to get a water sampling program going in Tufton Borough for arsenic and cadmium, and people that are on drilled, deep, fractured, deep wells, radon, and basically individual homeowners would pay for the service, but they wouldn't have to come down to Concord, pick up the water sampling kit, bring it home, sample their water, bring it back to Concord. They made it possible for people to come to the library or the fire station, wherever, pick up the sampling kit, sample the water, bring it back to the fire station, and then the town would transport all the samples down to Concord to be analyzed. So it made it easy for people to get their water sampled, and it was kind of an innovative program. Several other towns are looking at it now. Holderness is I think going to do the same thing, so that people can assess their drinking water for arsenic, cadmium, radon, and some of the other things that we're concerned about. And so the thought was, rather than recognizing him, maybe recognize the town as an award of excellence.
Yes, great, I'm glad you brought that up.
As a programmatic achievement. I'm sure he's not the only one that was involved in it, and it was unique, and it would give some visibility to that program, which I think was a worthwhile thing to do, because it is a hassle to, somewhat to get your water sampling done, and they provide advice on what you want. There's several options of what you want to get analyzed, and they can provide advice to people on that. So we put him aside in lieu of making that an award of excellence, but it still leaves us with Dan and Ken. And you should have received, Dave Jeffords put in, just yesterday I saw an additional recommendation for Dan for his work on the Comeau committee, Citizens Advisory Committee.
John?
I know a couple of years ago, I think several of us, maybe all of us, were concerned about, in looking at potential candidates, as to work they had done, which was part of their paying profession and what was volunteer. And I was still bothered by the result. My question is, presumably, I was a little confused on these, trying to decide on these candidates, particularly one of them, how much was paid work and how much was volunteer work. And my question is, I assume you took a pretty good look at that aspect of it.
Yeah, we had, you're referring to Kenton Wright? Is that the person you're referring to?
From before? No.
Well, he was a candidate that was with DES. Isn't that the one?
Oh, Ken Kettenring.
Kettering, yeah.
No, I'm done.
The ones now.
The two
main.
Two people that were
Okay.
considering this
the
morning.
two people, yeah, we did consider that factor, and I say this, Ken, most of what he did was what he did with DES, and in fact, he was nominated by the commissioner for the award, but we felt both Ken and Dan, what they had done was outside of their.
Okay, that was, yeah, good.
Some of the others were not.
I was going to ask about awards of excellence.
Yeah, yeah, we get into that, I guess let's finish the Comeaus, and then I had to make myself a note to tickle my memory here, but you're right. Remind me in case I forget. Okay, let's continue with the Comeaus then.
I'd like to make a comment about the superstar versus the solid citizen approach. And I'm in favor of the solid citizen approach. Because today, there's so much in the newspapers and our politicians who talk and talk and talk and don't know what they're talking about, and that haven't had experience in the areas that they're talking about. And for us to recognize individuals that over a period of time have made a solid contribution within the communities and within the region. And it's based upon their regular performance and contribution. I think that that's a very good thing for us to do. So I think that where we have candidates, that we should grant the award without this person having to be on the front page of every newspaper all the time.
Along with what Bob was suggesting.
Could I look at Dave's comments again?
They're on the back.
Okay.
All right, any more general discussion? Does somebody wish to make a motion for a candidate?
Could I just ask one clarification? So Kenneth Nolan, I was having a great deal of difficulty and came to this meeting not knowing which of the two. The main work that Kenneth has done has been as a paid individual?
No,
No?
no.
There were two different Kens in the conversation here.
There was Dan Paradise and Ken Knowlton.
Ken Knowlton, primary work was through the Conservation Committee, and land conservation work, master planning, but it was not job.
It wasn't?
It was not
I
job.
think you were referring to another Ken.
Yeah.
There was another Ken who,
Yeah.
Ken Kettenberg.
yeah, who was,
I just have no personal ability of deciding between the two. And I defer to the committee chair. Men.
I thought they tossed it into our lap.
I know, let's toss it back.
They did, they tossed it
well,
back.
it also raises a question, I think Barbara and I talked about this a little bit. We feel a little uneasy the last couple of years. And Barbara and I, and I'm not sure that's the
Well,
right
we don't
way
get into
to do this. You know, perhaps some process where we have a broader consensus on the candidates, but for the last couple of years, we've made a nomination and the board's rubber stamped it. I'm not sure that's the right way
We
to
think
do
so
it.
highly of your.
Yeah, that's,
Well, this is our last year doing this.
Oh.
We're turning it over to whoever.
Huh.
We've done it for a few years, so now you need.
Well, then make a recommendation this year then.
You need new blood.
Have we ever given the,
No.
2 awards in 1 year? Or is
No.
it just a single award?
Yeah.
So we don't have that? I have no idea.
You folks are not gonna make the recommendation?
Well, yeah, I favor parity.
Is that a
And
motion?
why, John?
Excuse me?
And why?
I'd like to work with the Penny group. And so I kind of identified, having worked in the Pemidrosit watershed myself, and knowing what that group has done over probably 20 years, even though this guy hasn't been with it that long. I think that's what threw it my way. Also, somehow I got the sense that he was a little more of a volunteer through all of this stuff. And I guess I was incorrect about that, which is why I brought up that question. But that was my initial feeling with reading through the stuff. So all of that was before I read Dave's memo yesterday, so that maybe that kind of reinforced my decision, but my feeling was there before yesterday's memo.
It should say if Ken Knowlton did in his application have a bunch of work done that was related to his job, but we dismissed that. We didn't consider it
No,
as, he worked in the junkyard inspections and those kinds of programs with DES, or with Department of Transportation, I guess, and DES, but we didn't consider that. Beyond that, he worked in some water quality stuff, groundwater withdrawal issues, land conservation, a bunch of things outside of the junkyard.
I'm gonna say that I would vote for Dan myself, if there's a motion to do that. And what keyed me was in reading the different recommendations. In particular, I like the part that David Jeffries wrote regarding the balancing, in the last paragraph, the balancing of the ideals of land and river with the practical nature of a small town planning board. To me, that's really important to have that balance, and that's kind of why I think that.
Any other comments, any arguments for the other candidate?
I would lean towards, of the two, I guess, Paradis.
So we consider that John made a motion and that Pat seconded it? Is that the way it works?
Sure.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then we'll call the question. All in favor of John Paradis? Please signify by saying aye.
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 Now, is the S silent or not? Did I?
Parity?
Parity.
D, okay. We need to make sure.
And I would recommend, there was an interesting thing on NPR a couple of weeks ago about collective intelligence. In fact, the CIA, it was a fascinating article in terms of trying to collect interpretation of what's going on. It has a program where they just go out and ask people, or people volunteer, you know, I think this means this, or I think this means that. And it turns out that when you get 1,000 people together, more often than not, you come up with a better answer than their technical analysis. So the idea with the thesis was there is such a thing as a collective intelligence, and if you get enough people together, a good answer emerges. It may have a large distribution, but it leads you to a good answer. And I suggest next year, rather than one or two people do this, that we all review the candidates and try to draw on our collective interpretation to come up with a winner, rather than just one or two people trying to fathom through it. I think it would be a stronger process. So rather than doing it through a subcommittee, I'd suggest doing it with the full committee, review them. And we only get 5 or 6 a year, so it's not an overwhelming amount of work. I think it would be a stronger process. That would be my recommendation. Do you agree, Barbara?
yeah.
As part of that, would you be in favor of involving people from outside the board on that? Maybe state officials or something like that, or not?
State official.
They wouldn't have anything to do with knowing
So much for that.
the undercurrent.
You involved them in the interview process for this
Yeah,
job.
well, their whole, we don't have
Well,
politics in it.
that was maybe more.
Okay,
Maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
okay.
It'd still be
I
your
stand
district.
corrected.
Scratch that.
Okay, if I may, please, can I just wrap up the business here for just a second? We got the ayes, but I didn't ask if there was any no's on Dan Parity. Hearing none, Dan Parity has the nomination. I so declare it. Thank you. Okay, the ayes have it.
Now, I must say real quickly that I'm here because of Dan Perry.
Uh-oh, can we back up?
There goes that.
We operate on the principle of full disclosure.
This isn't, I mean, he handed me the master plan, he said, do something with it. That's all I can remember when I first met him, but, he was interested in the Pemigewasset. And unbeknownst to, in 1961, my father's challenge was to put the Lincoln Pulp Mill out of business that was polluting the Pemig. And of course, he died prematurely before everything it was being shut down, but Dan Perry jumped right into this without. But when Mr. Moore, who just passed away, who was the schoolmaster for New Hampton Prep School, and Dan had taught there for 28 years, was to see alumni come up to Dan. And Dan's a very quiet individual, but very giving. But he was just, he was so shy, he backed away from a lot of these former students, but they all thanked him because a lot of them went into science. And Dan also has a electrical background, engineering as well, but from Yale to Dartmouth and schooling that he went through, I never thought about Dan till a question came up about the PEMI months and months ago, and Dan showed up and showed up and showed up through all this, but he was just, and it wasn't a Dave Jeffers thing that came out. It was that last sentence, just like Barbara says, it really made it. So.
Okay, yes, John.
So you will notify Dan?
Is this gonna be a surprise?
I thought it,
No.
We usually try to have it as.
We
have to
usually
know
try
it's
to have it as a surprise.
Yeah.
We usually
You
try to
try to
have
get
it.
them there as a surprise.
Right.
You
Although
can-
this
I can,
has
I
been
can,
taped and
I
it's
can,
gonna be circulated.
I'll do it,
Yeah, okay.
because I talked to Dan tonight.
May not get them.
You
Just
will
get 'em to
appreciate
come.
that.
You don't
Yeah,
want
just
to
get them
come.
to come, but
This
you
is
have to tell
supposed to
them.
be a surprise.
Oh, I can do that.
Of course,
So
I don't
he's
even know
in
him.
charge.
Yes, because there's gonna be no charge for him,
Right, okay.
you know.
He was, I think he was planning, because tonight, well, I'll definitely find out
Yeah.
today, planning board tonight.
But you're in charge.
Thank you.
But you are gonna tell him or you're not?
I won't tell him.
No, don't, because you could have another reason that you're gonna have him go for
Right.
some other person.
Oh, I was gonna tell him,
Last year, we
I'm a
said,
good white liar,
we
I'll
asked,
tell that.
yeah, we asked our person who did get it, that we really needed to be there because so-and-so was gonna get it.
Right. Yeah.
I'll just tell him.
Web we read.
All right, yes,
So, are you recommending any other candidates for an award of excellence?
well, that was what I was going to go on to. It sounds as if we might have a town award of excellence. Is that kind of what I heard
Yeah, the
being
Tufton Borough for
suggested?
That would be my recommendation.
yeah, for the water thing there,
Recognize the
yeah,
town.
for Wingate.
I think it's a good idea.
Tufton Borough
Yeah.
for their domestic well water sampling program.
Right.
I'll second that.
Boy, that would open up for other towns to start.
Yeah, it'll be.
I think it's a
good-
great
good
idea.
exposure.
Really good exposure.
Okay, any further discussion on that?
I was thinking about the, again, to point out to other towns, the system that was put in Antonia at the White Oaks and Weirs Boulevard, that was a combination, it was a partnership, a cooperation between a condo association granting easements and the city putting it in, that it cleared the water prior to entering Paugus Bay. During our workshop, Luke Powell made the presentation on it and so forth. I think that calls for an award of achievement of excellence. Not only recognizing that, but it also is an educational point for other communities as to thinking about doing things like that.
It did make it to the front page of DES's web newsletter several months back.
Yeah, I'd recommend them for that award.
That's a good idea because there's so much talk on stormwater management, and that's a great example.
Okay, let's finish off Tufton Borough first, and then we'll go to that, okay?
Okay.
Well, I mean, we have the motion, we have the second, and we've had some discussion. Any further comments on giving an award of excellence to Tufton Borough. Okay, call the question, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, thank you. Okay, now let's go on to your,
I'd recommend the city of Laconia for that project be awarded an award of excellence.
Second that.
okay, any further discussion on that? Call the question, all in favor of an award of excellence to the city of Laconia for this project, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it, thank you. Okay,
Wow.
any other recommendations while we're on this? Is there any other suggestions, nominations for awards of excellence?
Stan, just looking for the Comeau's nominees, and some of them have been multiple year nominees. I think that's where Bob and I had that conversation. There's some really good people that are nominated for Comeau's, and I think there's a lot of pride at the local level when they make that nomination, and so I think having the Excellence Award come in behind that is really important. Really important. I know this. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
We understand.
Would you think that Ken Knowlton then should be awarded a award of excellence?
I think in the past been sort of generous with the awards of excellence. There's been multiple awards of excellence made, and I see it as a positive overall for this organization to do that. And I think when the people do get nominated and they go through the process of doing it, and then their candidate doesn't get, especially if they've been nominated several times, that we don't want it to have a negative effect. That's for certain.
Oh, you save him for next year.
Okay.
Ken's been nominated twice,
Yes, he
last
has.
year and this year.
2013 and 2014.
So he's got strong support but we thought this nomination fit better as an award of excellence than as an individual effort. He's done other things.
So would you like him to have an award of excellence?
Well, my guess is that if we give it to Tufton Borough, he'll be the one that accepts it, because my understanding was he was the driving force behind this program.
Well, Tufton Borough is Steve Wingate, right?
Wingate,
I mean,
Steve Wingate.
Yeah.
Wingate.
Well, should it be given to Tufton Borough instead of an individual?
I'd give it to the town.
I would too, yeah.
You know, we might-
Especially where he's about to be on the board.
Yeah.
I mean, not that that's
He'd
bad.
probably be the person,
Gives you-
the appropriate person to accept the award on behalf of the town, so
Right.
he'll get some recognition.
Well, my question was on Ken Knowlton, should he be granted an award of excellence?
I don't think so,
You know,
separate, not, no.
Okay,
Yes.
so we'll have 2 awards of excellence.
So is it going directly to the individual in Tufton Borough?
No,
the
to
town,
the
town of Tufton
No, to
Borough.
the
I see
town.
no reason why, he can't be mentioned in it as whatever.
Right.
Yeah, whoever
Yeah.
you talk to, you might suggest, it's our understanding that Ken was
Spearhead.
Steve.
The driving force.
Steve.
Driving
Steve,
force.
that was
Get
the
with it.
driving force, and he'd be an appropriate person to accept the award.
So right now we have 3 awards of excellence, do we?
Two.
Laconia.
What's up to
City.
Oh.
Tufton
Oh, that's right, I'm
Tufton
sorry.
Borough and
Yeah.
Laconia.
Mushy that. All right.
All right?
Yep.
We okay on awards then?
Did you want one?
We all thoroughly confused? Yeah,
Doesn't take much.
the Grand Poobah Award of Excellence, right? I looked up the definition of poobah, and it ain't all that complimentary.
If the shoe fits, wear it.
If the food should- Okay.
How do you spell that?
Just because Jay Leno doesn't have a job, doesn't, you want it?
See if I can regain my composure. I think we must be, it must be this thing that is mentioned in the board administrator, that commitment to 1 hour board meetings, anything that goes over 1 hour. Anyway, okay, I think we're on to the executive nominations ballot and the proposed slate. I think we're
You want ours now?
pretty much all set on that, so.
You have a copy of the ballot in the packet.
Yeah, do you want ours now?
You can give it to
Uh,
us now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got
We
it.
can hand them into Murray.
One, we keep it.
I'll give you, when
You
I
didn't
call
vote for
Sam,
me.
I'll find out what he, I'll give you a check and then I'll find out what he wants to eat.
Couldn't spell your name?
Oh, she spelled it on there.
That was tough, you know?
Thank you.
Now you can stop twisting my arm. I saw your TV ad.
Irwin Court? Oh,
Okay, so he's.
I did one for Irwin Court, and it keeps showing up every now and then. I've never seen it.
I have, once.
Well, they have it on their, when you call and you get put on hold, they play those things there too. I've never seen it.
I have a question. We had a representative ask a he's not planning on coming to dinner, he's going after dinner, and he wants to like pay us to pay, so I don't know if we'll talk about policy on that.
And we have one representative that wants to come, but he wants to come after dinner, and he wanted to know what our policy was on paying. Any thoughts?
Double.
So,
That's good.
It wasn't an easy, because at the last meeting, we discussed getting better connections with our legislators and things like that, and having them come to our commission meetings and things, so I wasn't sure what to do. It seemed like a little bit of a dilemma.
We did have
It
this
sounded like you
discussion
wouldn't be
a
attending.
year or so ago, didn't we?
I thought we said that if he's not there for dinner, then he doesn't have to pay.
Yeah, that's what I,
he just won't get recognized when we.
yeah, because we recognize people before dinner, don't we?
Yes,
No.
Right.
yes, we
So
do.
for $20, we'll recognize.
With $20 to recognize you. Okay, no, that's,
Okay, so thank you.
if he's not gonna be there.
Sorry to bother you with that.
No,
It's kind of high
No,
stakes
no, no.
there.
it's good to get,
This is the
I think
institutional
years ago, we
knowledge
used to pay
here.
for every
Yeah,
quarter.
I wanna be
Pay
consistent.
every quarter. Pay for their dinner, I think, years ago.
okay.
Every quarter came, we would pay for their dinner,
I think that's been a policy on the
Yeah.
issue too.
yeah.
Okay, we're on to the subcommittee reports then, are we ready for that?
I think so.
All right, Gene?
Yes, Gene, go for it, Gene.
Speak up, come on.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Gene.
The GPS.
Pass out on this thing, I don't know. So basically, that committee, I think, has one more meeting scheduled in May, and there's a question about if and how that committee is gonna continue on beyond the next meeting, because I guess basically people signed up for the next meeting, am I correct about this? That was my conversation with Jean, but I definitely see a need to have some kind of a group together through the adoption process with the community, so we might have to take that up.
I'm on that group, and I've never heard of it ending when the draft report was.
Okay, well,
No, I would just suggest that while there's a need, it remains there, and when the final report is printed, that's the end of that group. But until then, it's still a task, and that if you need or want input from them, they stay in place.
okay, good. So the working away, it's most, on the website, on the Lakes Region Plan, most of the drafts have been posted. If the draft isn't posted, then there's a date when it will be posted, and we're doing a pretty good job of keeping to those dates. So there's a few pieces that have not been posted yet, but those will be posted soon. I think the executive summary, I think June 6th. I think that's the last piece to be posted, and should be posted by June 6th. And I do have I do have this handout that I can pass around. I think this is sort of intended for the committee, the committee's discussion when it meets at the end of the month. But I think it's important for the executive board has discussed this in the past, this idea of what the plan for adoption and distribution is. So I just thought we could have a little, just at least to inform you on what our thinking is on this thing. The RSA, the first part of this memo is quotes the RSA, which requires us to do a few things, to have 3 copies in every town at specified locations, and to have a 30-day public review period where we will answer, provide a written response to comments on the draft review. So some of the discussion on that has been, should we make hard copy, or how many hard copies can and should we make? And number 2, I'm really think it's very important to get this thing in front of the commissioners themselves, because they're the ones that are going to be voting on it. Certainly they need, the town needs to be, they need the support from the selectmen and the town, but the commissioners themselves need to be. So I think where we're at, and I don't know if there's any suggestions would be appreciated, but I think what we've talked about is maybe anybody who wants a hard copy any commissioner or town that wants a hard copy, select board or whatever, will print it out and provide it to them. But we were thinking that to start out, that we would just do 1 hard copy. Well, there's a couple things. Here's a couple of different ways. We could do 1 hard copy per town, and then a couple discs with the rest of the report, and have it on our website, and provide copies where needed. There's also discussion about, well, what about just the executive summary? Maybe we can just distribute hard copies of the executive summary with diskettes to people. So there's that. So the schedule for doing it, so maybe we can come back and discuss it. And the schedule for doing it is basically, we want to have the thing done by June 30th, the final draft, or not the final draft, the draft, preliminary draft done by June 30th, have it distributed by July 15th. We're required by law to have a 30-day review period, but I'm talking about having a 60-day review period between the July 15th release and the September 30th commission meeting. And then, I don't know how likely it is that we would get it adopted at the September commission meeting, so and we're going to get into the commission schedule in a minute too, but I scheduled meetings in October and November, commission meetings in October and November too, as backups. And I think we're going to be looking for adoption of the broadband plan and the regional plan during this time frame. So I just wanted to get some feedback on that, and especially how this idea of distribution and how many hard copies of the full, because we're talking, we still haven't printed out this whole thing, so I don't know how thick it is, but it's going to be pretty thick.
In today's world, digital,
How large is the executive summary?
The executive summary isn't done, but the idea is that it should be no more than 10 pages.
10 pages? So that could be emailed.
Yes, could be.
Now, how do people get changes back to you?
Well, they could, I guess it's phone, email, mail. They can, any of the communication methods they can use.
I think it's going to be too big to email the entire plan.
Yes, yes. It will be.
If it's that.
Discuss is what we're.
But yet we want people to read it,
Right. And I don't know about you, but when I get a diskette,
forget it.
and it's a 6-inch document, I mean, that's,
I was thinking, email the commissioners the executive summary. And have all of that backup available online. Now, I assume you were going to provide at least one
well, we have to by law.
by law.
Three copies.
Printed copies?
It doesn't say that. I have one RPC director who's worried about saying, oh, I'm gonna make photocopies of the entire thing, because unless I get an attorney who tells me that I don't have to give hard copies. But this doesn't say hard copies, it says,
A copy?
it doesn't even say copy, it says,
Doesn't even say that.
What do you
prior
read?
to adoption, the plan shall be distributed to every library, planning board, and board of selectmen, city council, and to the Office of Energy and Planning. So the plan shall be distributed, and it doesn't say the format.
Yeah,
So I think we're in pretty good shape,
if it's in.
just doing the executive summaries, and then maybe we do one full printing for every town. I wouldn't suggest any more than that, and that's, that's 30 towns, that's quite a bit.
How about if it's available somehow electronically? Just online,
Right.
some way you have made it available, and when the executive summary is sent out, you can make them aware of where they can get all the supporting data.
We can make it available electronically by diskette and by having it online on our website.
I think those are the great ones.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
The day of the hard copy is over.
and the thing is that
Especially-
there aren't going to be too many individuals, just being realistic, that are going to go much beyond the executive summary. There may be some that want to look for certain pieces, they'll have that opportunity, but I can assure you, if you flop something down that size in front of me and said, oh, this plan, review it, I don't know.
Not going to the outhouse and throw it away.
Just as a point of clarification, being on the advisory committee and reviewing these documents, why this is so thick is not actionable recommendations for changes to regulations. What this is a providing for our member communities data as to what the current situation is and the trends that have gotten us to this current situation. So when you look at it on the population data and other data like that, it's a tremendous tool for each town to utilize in the development of their own individual master plans, which they control within their town. But it is absolutely consistent with the position that has been taken all along, that this is not a plan dictated by the United Nations or the federal government. This is information to help our communities develop their own regulations.
So as a minimum, every town should get the entire plan electronically
Yes.
in a CD.
Every town has to get 3 copies.
Well,
Plan,
the
by
CD
law.
is the way to do it,
Yeah,
because
CD
as
is
they
the
go
way.
through.
And the
it,
question I have for you all, and it sounds like you're saying, I don't even need to make one full hard copy for every town, that I can make it available by diskette, have it on our website, and send them maybe a hard
No,
copy of
I
the
disagree
executive
with
summary.
that. I
Okay,
disagree
that's
with
what
that,
I
too.
wanted to make sure.
I think each
disagree with
town,
that.
the town hall or the city hall
Yeah,
should
hard
have
copy.
one hard copy.
Yeah.
Right.
So if a resident wants to come in and read a specific section,
Right,
they can do it.
right.
I agree with that.
Or if the planning board wants, it doesn't have everything in front of them in a meeting, they can go get the copy and say, look up something or whatever.
So should it be, the hard copy go to the library, planning board, or board of selectmen?
I see
Town
this,
office.
I see the town office.
So basically the board of selectmen.
Board of Selectmen for a
Yeah.
town, or
Yeah.
the city manager for a city.
Yeah, because the planning people work with the selectmen.
Exactly.
Okay. And then diskettes then to the planning board and the library.
CDs.
CDs.
Okay.
And then what about
Plus
hard
being
copy?
available on the net.
plus the.
And the
When you
executive-
say available on the net, what does that mean? Can you download it? It's too big to download.
Well, we're gonna have to break it into chapters or break it into chunkable sections so it can be downloaded. I think
Well,
if
is that
we-
the intent to download it, or the intent to be able to read it online?
Read online?
I think you should be able to print it out if you,
If you did-
I don't know, I
You
mean,
can put it
we
in a
could
zip
print it out
file
for
and
them.
make it happen.
If you did it by chapters, like you said, say that I wanted to read about population or whatever, one chapter. Or I wanted to print that one chapter, but I don't wanna print the other 58 chapters.
Right.
Then you could do that? That's what
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
oh, yeah.
And the other thing I would ask is that the CDs that you give to people or to groups, are they copyable? Could they be?
I think we wouldn't, there's no reason not to.
Because that would be good.
So-
Because that way, like I know that,
Public
like
protection.
our master plan, we all got a CD on the planning board of the master plan for ourselves, so
Yeah.
that we could do whatever we needed.
Yeah.
For updates.
What format is it in? Is it a Word document?
There's been a lot of discussion about that too, but yes, it's gonna, we decided, we've landed on Word because we need something that we can edit.
Right.
So it's in Word, it's not as fancy a formatting as it could be.
So when a final plan is distributed, is that still Word?
I think so, I think that's the best way to go. I think that's the best, we don't have, all we have is Publisher for, I think that's the best way to go with Word.
Or why not PDF?
Why not be, you do it.
PDF would keep
Oh,
it
yeah,
from
in
being
terms
able
of
to
Final
change.
plan.
Yeah,
Final-
P-
Final.
yeah.
Approved plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, when things, yes, we can't have,
Can't have people out there changing it.
no, that would be a nightmare. To do that,
So
so
I-
I was thinking about internally, what format do we have?
I think the
versus
final
distribution.
version that goes out has got to be a
Absolutely.
PDF, and
Yeah.
so that
And-
it can't be.
Well, and even the diskettes, or the CDs that go out, should probably be in PDF. I don't know, we talked about doing track changes for that, but
Yeah, I
that could
wanted
that could be kind of a nightmare too, when you have 30 different track changes. I don't know, it could be done.
I don't think you can handle that.
Do you think we should do the track changes?
No.
I don't
think you
know.
can handle that.
I think that's, we could make some mistakes, we could drop some balls on that.
That'd be a
So,
nightmare.
so I think probably PDF for all the distributions.
But any individual reading it could send an email to LRPC with their comments about any individual section. And so electronically, they can get their comments in. They don't have to do it hard copy.
And then we have to respond in writing to those comments.
And writing being electronic.
Yeah, I wouldn't accept verbal comments.
No,
I think
okay.
either a
No.
letter or email,
The only verbal would be potentially at like a commission meeting,
yeah.
when it's part of the minutes of the meeting.
Yeah, because the minutes.
Because, at the September 30th meeting, we could have potentially major revisions that the commissioners are asking for.
Yeah, it's just a matter of having documentation of, here's what was said. So in that case, it becomes part of the minutes, and the minutes are approved, so it becomes,
Absolutely, because sometimes you'll get you'll get a comment from one side and then the opposite comment, and, which way do you go?
We just said we're gonna supply a CD with the entire plan on it to every town.
Two of them.
Plus one hard
Two
copy.
plus one hard copy to every town.
Okay. How does a commissioner see the plan?
That's been my concern. I think I want to send hard copy executive summaries to the commissioners.
That's not the plan. Huh?
No, go ahead.
That's not the plan.
And then, right, so do we make hard copies for every commissioner? Or how do we handle that?
We tell them to go check their internet, your website.
Or they could have access to the hard copy that's in the
Exactly.
town office.
or
I'm a
send-
little, I want to make it easy for the commissioners to review because they're the ones voting,
Or send
so
them a CD.
certainly can send them a CD.
Yeah, why
Send
can't
them
you
an
just send
executive
them
summary and a CD.
in today's world, I mean, come on.
Well, how many megabyte are we talking about for the document? Does anyone know?
No, I don't think we know. I think we're talking about several hundred pages though.
Several hundred pages though,
It's-
well, yeah, but if it's PDF increases the megabytes.
And a lot of the size is gonna depend on the graphics and the pictures.
Right.
And we wanna try to include as many of those as possible, because it makes it a lot more of a attractive plan.
It would have to be on the CD then.
Yeah.
And if a commissioner didn't have the home capability of reading it, they could go to their public library, couldn't they? Or to town hall.
Or town hall.
I think
Yeah.
that's the thought of having a
Yeah.
copy at the library always.
Okay.
But that makes it a pain. You know, I won't do that to give comments back. I'm not gonna go to the library. And I'm running on a tablet that doesn't have a CD.
Right.
So I can't even read a CD now. How many other people are like that, I'm not sure.
But that thickness?
You could go on the website and
And read it.
download the
I go on the
sections from the
website.
website.
Yeah.
Um,
Your tablet doesn't have a micro capability?
Oh, yeah, the tablet, yeah, I can do a USB.
I always hate reviewing documents on the screen. I always like that, but it's one of those things that I think is in transition, that people
Oh,
are,
yeah, when we're dealing with hundreds of pages.
yeah, it's
Oh.
really hard to go through those. I really like a hard copy when I'm reviewing
Yeah.
documents.
Yeah.
I always read Winnie the Pooh in hard copy.
Well, by having the CD, then you have the option of doing it electronically, or if you wanted chapters printed out, or you could go to your town hall, their hard copy, you could read it there.
You know, the backup is always that we will make a hard copy upon request. You know, if somebody, we know that whatever we do isn't gonna satisfy everybody.
Is there one chapter for actionable items, or is there actionable items on all chapters?
The implementation section will be, all the implementation will be in an implementation chapter.
One chapter, okay.
So that's sort of like the executive summary, could be the vision, the telling the story, which is supposed to be summarizing the chapters in a attractive way, engaging way, and then the implementation work would be basically what the executive summary would be.
Were you thinking of using our printer for printing, which I'm hoping you're gonna say no?
Right.
Depending on how many we do, we just did get a new photocopier, lease photocopier with all kinds of color and copy.
No, the ink
But
alone is gonna
something
put-
like this, just,
Yeah,
Bring it down to Staples and.
yeah.
Yeah.
someplace.
I mean, we just paid something like $1,200 or $1,300 for for all of the invitations to the annual meeting. We farmed that out,
To whom?
including the stuffing the envelopes and postage and everything. The whole thing was done by them.
Who did that, Staples?
Tyler Graphics.
Oh,
I just have a concern with 50 individuals that are in the state, in some organization, approaching every RPC saying that they wanted a hard copy printed out 50 times all the RPCs, and that we need to stand the cost for that. I have a hard time with that. You know, that if an individual wants that total and complete hard copy printed out, mailed to them, that I have a hard time with us standing the total cost of that.
So we're required to give them to the town, and it's a smart idea to give to our commissioners, but other members of the public, there's nothing requiring us to give that for free.
Well, giving it to them for a cost, the cost, just a cost basis, is my point here. That they should have the availability, but I can just see, given the proliferation of right to know and all of this, that it falls under the same thing, that yes, you can have a copy of it, but if we have a $20 expense to do this for you, send us the $20 and we'll send you the.
And I think we're on very good ground to do that, because we can provide an electronic copy to anybody. You can give them CD-ROM. If they want to print it out,
Yeah.
we gotta charge for that.
Because many groups
Unless
are just
they're
obstructionists and try to find the opportunity to cause the maximum pain. And so if, would you give them the CD at no charge, or would you add a cost to that? There is a cost to that.
It's pretty minimal, I mean, if, you know, $1 or so for
Yeah,
the.
it's 50 cents a
for the-
CD and
I would suggest that their cost be there too. So that there's that minimal cost for the CD, and if they wanted it
I mean,
hard printed, here's the cost for that.
I mean, we can, I mean, it is available electronically through the website too, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I think we're meeting right to know with that.
Yes, and I'm just thinking that those that just are, want these other forms, and many times not for the purpose that they're stating, that our answer is yes, you can, here's the cost. You give us the money and we'll give you the document. The money first, here's the document.
And I'd like to go back to what Pat was saying, though, something of this size, and you're gonna send something out, hard copies out to 30 towns, you could very well exceed your printer's
Yes.
capacity
right.
very quickly. And there's no sense in wearing it out, there's no sense in using up our number of copies with something like this, when we can have it done with folks that have the equipment to do that. And again, even just printing it out and collating it and getting everybody, that takes time and people.
That takes a whole truck just to move.
In fact,
it.
I'd suggest that you discuss this at your association meeting, because all 9 RPCs will have exactly the same issue. And it could be that you issue a joint contract
Exactly,
to a printer, and it all comes out from one place.
right, and like,
That's nice.
exactly.
The economy
I
of
totally agree
scale.
with that. And like, even get some bids
Yeah.
from some different printers that will
They're all
do
looking for
this
work.
many for blank.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's good.
9 times 600 times 30, that's a big print job. And it would be attractive to those that have the capability of doing it. And it would be the most efficient and effective.
Yeah. I'm not sure if all the commissions are doing printed copies. to
Well, those that
everybody.
do,
Yeah,
I'm just,
I'll look into that, we discussed it the other day, but this didn't come up, I'll raise that.
More help than you really needed.
No, it's all good, I'd rather hear it now than after I do something.
Okay.
Goes deeper in.
All right, is there anything else on that issue? Otherwise, we'll get on to the National Association of RPCs. Bob, you gonna take the lead, or is Jeff?
Well, I missed the last meeting, but you've received copies of the legislative status thing, and I guess the ones of interest, the bottle bill was killed. That was the bill to have a, you know, a 5-cent redemption on the bottles or whatever. The establishing the state economic development plan process was passed by both the House and the Senate. I don't think it's been signed by the government.
No, it hasn't.
are they funding that?
No.
No.
I love it.
The other one we talked about before was the establishing of a paint stewardship program, and that was ITL.
Really?
And
Yes,
it became a state paint tax. That's the way it was presented. I think those were the ones we mentioned last week. Still there's several bills still dealing with turbines and the northern pass type things, and those haven't reached final vote yet. So, work in progress.
So we continue to have, there's some issues in us tracking legislation, and Bob and I sitting in on these meetings and voting to support or oppose legislation for the rest of the commission. You know, and there's issues with, you know, there was just a legislative breakfast in the State House cafeteria. And there's some discussion about, well, you know, is that really where we want to position ourselves, you know, as, you know, to do, you know, potential education lobbying with the people? Are we a state, part of a state agency, or are we a lobbying group? A lot of what we do, that's a lot of what the association does now. It's a lot of what the association spends its money on. There's other discussions about what the association should be doing in terms of engaging commissioners from around the state to be able to intermingle and things like that. So it just seems like a lot of this is in flux and discussion about how we handle that. The municipal association, the Planners Association has been offered to be part of the municipal association's legislative tracking effort, where they go about it a little bit differently. They have like theme-based committees that track legislation within a topic area, so they have more context and more ability to make informed decisions. So I really must admit that I think that that's a better approach, because I found myself already in situations where needing to take a position on a bill or something where I don't have the information I need to do that, and that can get dangerous. And even if I thought I had the information I need, it's really not my decision to take a position for this commission. So.
And the problem becomes one of the bills change, so, you know, in theory, you said you want to go back to the commission to get a vote on every bill, so if you are lobbying, you're lobbying in the name of your 30 towns that you represent. Well, the bills change as they move through, so, and we only have, what, 5 commission meetings a year, so it's hard to stay in sync with what's going on.
And maybe spending more time engaging legislators in our region at commission meetings and other.
On our issues, so that,
Yes.
I think, my recommendation would be for the next round is that we pick out a small number of bills that are of particular interest to our region, and just stay focused on those. You know, not the 20 or 30 watching this. I don't think we get a lot out of that, but if there was a bill specifically related to lake region interests, make an effort to educate the commissioners and solicit feedback in some manner, either email or whatever, so that we're speaking as a representative of the 30 towns and not as an executive board.
That's very good in that, and also to include our representatives and our senators.
Yeah.
Because there is a huge disconnect between the educational efforts of trying to educate our representatives as to the needs, like on the gas tax, the user fee increase. I was extremely disappointed to see so many of the representatives in our towns in Lrpc vote against it,
Yeah.
when there was quite an effort to educate as to why the economic development of the state's critical and the safety is critical, and then they vote against it. It's like, I don't understand that. And I think that the closer we align the representatives and the commissioners and the towns and cities together is an important thing, because they can come and they can listen and then they go vote politics, and that's terrible.
What's new? But
Yeah.
that's where the idea of, you know, if we had 2 or 3 or some number of bills we were very interested in, we just bring the sponsors in to meet with our commissioners and invite our other representatives to hear the dialogue and to have an interface with both the sponsors of the bill, but also our other representatives.
Yeah.
And but limit it to a management number of important bills. I think there's just too much stuff we're trying to keep on top of, and in the process, we're not really representing the people we're supposed to be representing. There's not enough time to do that.
So Stan, this is a fairly big issue. I suggest maybe we table it for today and bring it back to a
It
future
sounds as
meeting.
if it could stand some additional discussion, yeah.
Yeah. It is a big issue. I think we both felt very ill at ease.
Yes.
Pat?
Could I ask if I could bring up a subject, because I have to leave, and that is about board insurance that we talked about, the board of directors, just quickly to, I just think that that I'm asking if Jeff will make sure that we have information about whether or not we are covered by directors and officers' liability insurance somehow. Okay?
Yes. Do you want me to respond to that?
Go
If
for
you
it.
We wanna
have
get
some
into that?
information now,
So I just met with our insurance agent and went over our different insurances, and we have a number of liability, we have 2 liability coverages. We have business liability for up to $2 million, and then we have an umbrella liability that's an additional $1 million. There's been a lot of discussion. The insurance agent said he's had discussions over many years with Kemen about the errors and omissions or directors and officers insurance. And the thought has always been that we do not need it because the sovereign, if we're an entity of the state, the sovereign immunity that protects us, and if we're a nonprofit, there's laws about suing volunteers on a nonprofit board. So that's been the case up until now. It costs about $4,000 a year. It's pretty expensive to get that insurance. And in the past, the thought was that we didn't need to have it. We do have, I did find out we do have a $50,000, in the financial procedures, it calls for a $50,000 bond for the officers and the executive director. We do have that. I've been told, he still hasn't given me documentation of that, but he said we do have it, and he's going to be sending me documentation on the bond. He did sort of point out a fine point in our insurance, in that our insurance covers us if we did something, if we're liable for something or did something wrong. It doesn't necessarily cover us if someone just makes a claim against us. It will cover us if we actually were liable for something, but if someone just wants to accuse us of being liable or something, the insurance doesn't necessarily cover that. So anyway, so I think we have the bonding. It's the officers and directors insurance has been looked at. The thought to today is that we didn't need it. At the last meeting, we talked about me getting a letter from Attorney General's office, giving us some kind of extra security, finding that we in fact are fully covered, and that's something that is going to take some time to get from Attorney General's, but it's something that we need to pursue. So that's what I know.
because there's been some question as to whether we're fish or fowl. We're not really a state agency per se, on the one hand, and whether or not we have the 501c3 status has been, or 501 whatever.
Yeah, we're not C3, but we might be some other kind of.
See something,
Yes.
see what,
Right.
but,
IRS, yeah.
but we just haven't found anybody yet that could assure us that we really are definitely covered under one of those two areas.
You're right.
We always seem to just fall in between. And I think Pat is as worried as, I've been concerned about it. I haven't lost sleep yet over it, but it's this issue of just somebody accusing you of something, and if you've got to defend yourself, you may end up, being found innocent. But in the meantime, it costs you some money to do that. And
Jeff, it seems like this would be another issue that's common to all of it.
Right.
And it might be appropriate for the state association.
I think so.
Get a attorney general's opinion in that context, in terms of liability, what are we?
Right.
Yeah, and all the commissions might be a little bit different too, you know, we're not, but,
But they're all,
in terms of, are we a state entity?
yes,
That's-
there's legislation
that's
about
common.
that, yes.
Whether we're all 401c members, I'm not sure, but at least the question of whether we're, in terms of liability, if we're considered a state and we're covered as state employees, but something.
What kind of made me keep pushing it this week? I'm a trustee on a board of a charter school, and the charter school is controlled by the state of New Hampshire. And we have our own private, our own insurance company, insurance for directors and officers, and it's $2,500 for, I think, $1 or $2 million each. And I just am saying, I don't think it has to be 4,000, and I think that you talk to different people, it can be different amounts, and I think 4 is exceptional. And I'm just saying that if we had to, then let's see what number, that's why I think, get the letter from the Attorney General, find out where we stand, and asking the other regional groups, and then, depending on those answers that come forth, maybe get a few different prices for what it would cost for what. That's all. I just think that it's not, I don't feel comfortable, not.
Board on that group, or one of the main ones.
just keep singing.
Do you want me to, I mean, you can, I can
There's
put
an
my name
election
there,
coming
too.
up, Jeff. No, I have no information to add.
I'm trying to recognize all your.
Other than in the, our city council in Laconia, we're starting up our new master plan. And one of our councilors indicated that there should definitely be a section in there focused on broadband, because broadband is so critical to every community. And so that it's not a sleepy issue, it's a big issue.
So I think it's this Friday that the state broadband conference is happening, 16th. So the culmination of this statewide broadband project.
Okay. Executive report?
Yeah, find mine. I think we hit a lot of the highlights of some of the program. We talked about the hazardous mitigation program, we talked about the regional plan and broadband, and you just heard about transportation, so I think that's basically, we've talked about the highlights from the executive board report.
Barbara, you just don't have any control over the Molten Borough Selectmen, do you? Every year they bring up the same question. Notice that in
I know, yeah.
copies of the news.
And in a way, we do pay a lot of dues, you know, but unless the town, I've told them that before, unless you go to the Lrpc and ask them to do stuff for you, you know, they're not gonna know offhand what the town wants and stuff like that, you know. I even think they did some kind of mapping when they had the town planner before the town planner now. It was a screwball, you know. And Tetrazzini is another screwball.
Well, some of the feedback I got from that meeting, where they were very satisfied that they were getting their money's worth.
Well, that's
They
good.
said that they've looked at it, looked at our reports that we provided for them, and it's very clear that they're getting their,
I think it's the
their money's
dues
worth.
that kills them. It's the dues.
well, but they're getting their money's worth out of the dues, and that the amount isn't hugely their concern either. It's more the idea of how the formula is
Right.
calculated, that they're not
And it's
assessed
fairly
fairly
done.
within everybody
Yeah,
else.
it's done.
Because their population,
Right.
you know, they compare their population to Laconia's population, their year-round population to Laconia's, and they're paying almost as much, and they're saying, well, why, we're a community of 4,000, and But I think they do clearly know that their population swells
I know, they
to
keep
many
harping on
times.
the same thing.
Did they bring out their assessed value?
Well, and then one of my main arguments was that the shoreline, that one of our driving forces of this organization is water quality. And so when you think about the benefits of what we do, the feet of shoreline that you have is
huge.
which, is property valuation too, but that's, there's a lot of property value that's benefiting from water quality. And so 3 of the 5 selectmen were very supportive and didn't have an issue with the formula. Two definitely did.
Wakefield.
And so,
Well, I'd like to compliment Jeff. He's been to, as different budget committees and selectmen want to understand the formulas and why they're built. You were going out there, you did it in Guilford and you've done it here. And any town or city that does want more understanding, you go out and explain things to them. And I think the pattern has been, and it's true for Kemen also, that when they really understand value for dollars, then they support it.
yeah.
And with the turnover of selectmen and budget committee people, this will be an ongoing issue that as they're analyzing their line items and they come across one. I will say that the city of Laconia is the highest dues-paying member of the association, and from the planning board standpoint and the council standpoint, we're extremely supportive and feel that we get more than full value for our dues dollars.
Okay, more.
Okay.
Now,
Future meeting schedule.
Okay, we have a handout on that. You can find mine. Basically, there was some discussion about maybe not having, we scheduled 6 commission meetings and not more, and we have them grouped together in July, September, October, November. So there are no commission meetings. This proposal, anyway, has no commission meetings scheduled in December, January, and February. The snowy months where we've had to have. And then there's snow dates put out for October, November, and November on the commission meetings. So we have basically 2 full commission meetings scheduled in September, what was that now, June and, well, I guess there's 3. What's going on here? One of these is an area, I guess I have 3 commission meetings here. Scheduled, and then a area meeting in each of the 4 areas. And then the executive board schedule is basically as it has been, with adding some snow dates.
So there's seven meetings scheduled altogether?
The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what it was. One of the that October one, I have an asterisk next to for optional. Basically, that's kind of a backup if it's looking like we need more deliberation time on the regional plan. That we have an extra commission meeting in there.
Okay?
So 6 normal ones with 1 optional commission.
All right, looking at the hour, do you want to, Jeff does have a couple of other items of business. Do you want to go quickly around for a round table, or do you want to skip that today?
Should we approve this schedule or not?
If you
Can't
would
take it
like,
anymore.
that would help.
Is that, if it's not normal, we don't need it.
Do we have a consensus that the
The
schedule
only
is
weird one
presented
is
is okay?
July. because a lot of people are on vacation, but that's the only one I saw in there that was just,
And that was sort of a special thing
Yeah.
this year, because DES is rewriting the wetlands rules
okay,
and wanted to have a meeting in the summer months in our region.
okay. Otherwise, all right.
So I think you have a general consensus.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Doable.
Doable. All right, do you want to go around quickly, or skip?
Let's skip it.
Okay.
Other business?
Other business?
Other business. Oh, boy. This is where I get the black marks. There's one contract I sent out to you yesterday afternoon. We have a second contract that was handed out to you this morning. Both of them are on, our annual contracts that we receive. The first one that I sent out yesterday afternoon is the targeted block grant contract with New Hampshire Office of Energy and Planning. They were, everyone's kind of scrambling to pull this together because they're trying to get it to the last Governor and Council meeting this year in June, and they have a lot to do on their end. So we're all sort of scrambling to pull this together. It's a a little less than $11,000 contract. It's the source that we use to do the development trends report that's been done annually for a long time, and a couple other scope tasks in there this year are to basically take the regional plan and create a crosswalk between. There's all kinds of resources in the regional plan, from vision to each of the chapter resources. There's been a lot of inventory, a lot of stuff gathered, and this could be a wonderful resource for towns doing master plans. I mean, all of this data has been pulled together, so we want to try to do a crosswalk between the resource list, for lack of a better word, for the regional plan, and sort of cater that to updating the master plan, the local master plan. So that's the other task that we included this year in that. And then I don't know if you want me to talk about the HHW separate. The HHW contract that just got given to you this morning is basically.
You didn't want to vote on that, I don't think.
Well, I sort of did.
I was going to say, before you go on, if you want to vote on it,
Okay, so I'm sorry, I should get this contract information out to you sooner, certainly in your packets, so you have time to review it. And I'm looking for an authority to sign the contract.
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor of giving Jeff the authority to sign the contract, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? You guys have it.
Thank you.
You're good to go.
And, we might, coming into the new fiscal year, we might want to do like a catch-all certificate of vote that names the contracts that we know that we're going to be getting, like the DOT contract. There's a list. There's some that we know and there's some that we don't know. And the ones that we know, sometimes it makes sense to do a catch-all vote, so we don't run into some of these situations in the future. But the second contract I have in front of you this morning is the Department of Environmental Services for basically contributions to our household hazardous waste collection program. This funding helps to pay for our staff time and coordinating the effort. And it's for a little over $16,000.
I move we provide authority to sign that.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
So I'm looking for the approval to sign
Okay.
this contract.
All right, then, call the question. All in favor of approving Jeff signing this agreement, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
You're all
Thank you for
set.
your indulgence on both of those.
It's not an indulgence, revenue is critical.
Yeah, revenue is critical. Amen to that. All right, any other business that needs to come before this illustrious group?
I I just have a quick question. Did any of your staff from planning or zoning go to the OEP conference a week ago?
Yes, we had one of our board members of the planning commission go,
It was
of the planning.
there, I went, and I was impressed, really impressed this time. It was packed, and very good subjects. I just wish we had an after hour to sit down with a lot of the other townships. I mean, I learned a lot from the people I was with, but I thought this time it really opened up. But the Russ Tebow presentation, it's almost like, do I live in New Hampshire? Things are a little bleak as far as 20,000 to 2,200 housing starts we've dropped to in New Hampshire. And then they got into rentals and population age. And, because I know we just had our school board meeting Monday night, and our student population is dropping again. It is how to get it revived again, you know. It's very interesting, but very good. Very good meeting.
A member of our planning board was particularly impressed with that presentation also, and asked our town planner to try to get a copy of it.
Exactly, because it's, we're
It's
gonna use
scary,
our
yeah.
master plan.
Well, in
before we
the
go.
regional plan too, when you look at the demographic section, it is really, really scary.
It is.
That we need to create every opportunity for economic development and residents and people moving in, because our populations are sinking.
Yeah, it's just, it is rather an eye-opener, but Russ was very, he had a lot of very good, I wished he could have had it in a darker room so I could see a lot of the graphs and stuff, but boy, you know, this is, hopefully we're trying to return some of the manufacturing back to just even New England, period. And it's, if we don't do something sooner than later, we're gonna be worse than scraping the bottom of the barrel. But it was just how many people have left versus coming back in, or they come and they turn right around and leave again. And yet New York City is having people leave. So,
And then the silver tsunami is the other part of that. What we do have is aging rapidly there.
well, and then the tax change, New Jersey's gonna be 800 million short because the ones who are wealthy, put their money outside of the state, so for income. So it's kind of interesting what's going on. Anyhow.
Okay, well,
On that uplifting note,
That money.
Very well to pull this together.
all right.
At 11
At
o'clock.
that rate, I'm gonna declare meeting adjourned.
Very
9
good.
minutes late. But that gave me a segue here.
Absolutely.
The space needs for us to